This is SpaceTime, Series 29, Episode 46, for broadcast on the 17th of April 2026. Coming up on SpaceTime, discovery of over 11,000 new asteroids, confirmation that planet Earth was made locally, and Virgin Galactic's new spaceship Delta to be flying before the end of the year. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
Preliminary data from the Vera C. Rubin Observatory has now led to the discovery of over 11,000 new asteroids. The data was confirmed by the International Astronomical Union's Minor Planet Center, making this the largest single batch of asteroid discoveries submitted in the past year. The new Vera C. Rubin telescope is located on a 2,682-meter high mountain in northern Chile. It's a survey telescope housing an 8.4-meter primary mirror which feeds a 3.2 gigapixel CCD camera, the largest ever constructed. The discoveries were made using data from Rubin's early optimization surveys and offers a powerful preview of the observatory's likely transformative impact on solar system science. The submission comprises approximately 1 million observations taken over a span of just 1.5 months. In the process, discovering 11,000 new asteroids and also observing some 80,000 already known asteroids, including some that were previously observed but had been lost because their orbits were too uncertain to predict their future locations. The study's lead author, Mario Jurek from the University of Washington, says this first large submission from Rubin is just the tip of the iceberg and shows that the observatory is ready. He says what used to take years or decades to discover, Rubin will unearth in just months. It means Rubin's already beginning to deliver on its promise to fundamentally reshape science's inventory of our solar system, in the process opening the door to discoveries astronomers haven't yet imagined. Among the newly identified objects are 33 previously unknown NEOs, or near-Earth objects. These are asteroids and comets whose closest approach to the Sun is less than 1.3 times the distance between the Sun and the Earth. The largest of these is some 500 meters wide. But the good news is that none of these newly discovered NEOs pose a direct threat to Earth, at least not yet. Objects larger than 140 meters are closely tracked by astronomers as they could cause significant damage were they to impact the Earth. The problem is astronomers estimate that only about 40% of these mid-sized NEOs have so far been identified. Once operating in full survey mode, Rubin is expected to reveal an additional nearly 90,000 new NEOs, some of which may potentially be hazardous to the Earth. It'll also nearly double the number of known NEOs larger than 140 meters by around 70%. By enabling early detection and continuous monitoring of these objects, Rubin will be a powerful tool for Earth planetary defense. The dataset also contains roughly 380 trans-Neptunian objects. These are the icy bodies, frozen worlds and comets orbiting beyond Neptune. And 2 of these newly discovered icy worlds, previously named 2025 LS2 and 2025 MX348, have been found to be in extremely large elongated orbits. At their most distant points, these 2 objects, each roughly 1,000 times further away than the Earth is from the Sun, is placing them among the 30 most distant minor planets known. The discoveries were enabled by Rubin's unique combination of a large mirror, the world's most powerful astronomical digital camera, and highly sophisticated software designed to detect faint, fast-moving objects against a crowded star-filled sky. Rubin will be able to survey the southern sky with roughly 6 times the sensitivity of most current asteroid searchers, allowing it to detect smaller, more distant objects than ever before. These capabilities will allow Rubin to build the most detailed census of our solar system ever obtained. And all of these discoveries will help astronomers work out the story of our solar system's history, and consequently the history of planet Earth. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, confirmation that planet Earth was made locally, and Virgin Galactic's new spaceship to be flying before the end of the year. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. A A new study has shown that planet Earth was formed from materials located in the inner solar system rather than stuff from beyond Jupiter. See, planetary scientists have long debated where the materials that form the Earth came from. Despite its location in the inner solar system, they consider it likely that between 6 and 40% of the materials that make up the Earth probably came from the outer solar system beyond Jupiter. See, for a long time, the material from the outer solar system was considered necessary for Earth because it brings volatile components such as water to our planet. Accordingly, there must have been an exchange of material between the outer and inner solar systems during Earth's formation. But how accurate is that hypothesis? Planetary scientists Paolo Sassi and Dan Bauer from ETH Zurich compared existing data on isotopic ratios from a wide range of meteorites, including those from Mars and from the asteroid Vesta, as well as isotopic ratios from Earth. Isotopes are elements that contain the same number of protons but have different mass because they contain different numbers of neutrons. The authors analysed this data in a new way and arrived at a surprising conclusion. The material that makes up Earth did in fact originate virtually entirely from the inner solar system. The new findings, reported in the journal Nature Astronomy, show that the material from the outer solar system makes up less than 2%, if anything, of the Earth's mass. For their study, the authors used data on 10 different isotopic systems from meteorites and analysed them using a specialised statistical method. See, previous studies have mostly concentrated on looking at just 2 isotopic systems. Sossi says that's where their research is different. It carried out statistical calculations that are rarely used in geochemistry. Isotopes in meteorites have long been used by scientists to determine the origin of a celestial body, that is, which part of our solar system they came from. Historically, however, only various isotopes of the element oxygen have been used to determine their provenance. It wasn't until the early 2010s that scientists discovered other isotopes such as chromium and titanium could also be used for the same purpose. And this enabled the authors to classify meteorites into 2 categories: non-carbonaceous ones, which form exclusively in the inner solar system, and carbonaceous ones, which contain more water and carbon and originate from the outer solar system. And the new analysis shows that planet Earth is composed almost entirely of non-carbonaceous material. In fact, no evidence was found for the previously suspected exchange between outer and inner solar system reservoirs. Therefore, planet Earth grew within a relatively static system, incorporating its smaller neighbouring planets as it grew. Now, this also implies that most volatile elements, such as water, must have already been present in the inner solar system. But that raises the question of why are there 2 distinct reservoirs in our solar system? Scientists assume that our solar system split into 2 separate reservoirs during its formation due to Jupiter's rapid growth in size. The gravity of the gas giant literally tore a gap in the protoplanetary disks surrounding our young sun. These ring-shaped protoplanetary disks consist of gas and dust and are the birthplace of planets. Close to the sun, only heavy elements such as silicons and ions can form. Lighter, more volatile elements such as water can only form where temperatures are cooler, beyond what's called the snow line, which is located roughly where the main asteroid belt is between Mars and Jupiter. And Jupiter acts as a barrier, preventing material from the outer solar system from later entering the inner region. However, the extent to which this barrier was permeable remained unclear until now. The new analysis demonstrates that almost no material from beyond Jupiter flowed towards the Earth. Bauer says the analysis also shows that Earth's material composition is similar to that of the asteroid Vesta and the planet Mars. The authors suspect that Venus and Mercury also lie on the same line. The findings shed new light on the formation history of planet Earth, as well as the other rocky terrestrial planets of the inner solar system. The authors now intend to follow up by investigating why there was sufficient water in the hot inner solar system to form Earth's oceans, and examine whether these processes can also be applied to extrasolar planets, planets orbiting stars other than the Sun. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, Virgin Galactic's new spaceship expected to be flying before the end of the year. And later in the Science Report, a new study has found that routine could be the key to successful weight loss. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. Space tourism company Virgin Galactic says work on the first of its new Delta-class spacecraft will be completed within the next few weeks, and construction of the second of these suborbital spaceplanes is already underway. The company says ground testing on the new vehicle will begin later this month, with engine-powered test flights expected to start before the end of the year. However, before it takes to the air, the spacecraft will need to undergo production acceptance testing, ensuring that all its systems are functioning correctly, to validate and verify the overall system design. The announcement follows the cancellation of the original Spaceship 3 program. That was to see the development of two orbital spaceplanes, VSS Imagine and VSS Inspire. In fact, VSS Imagine actually rolled out of the production facility back in February 2021, but after that nothing happened and the program was eventually cancelled. Virgin Galactic went back to the drawing board. The test flight program with the new Delta-class vehicles, including glide and rocket-powered flights, could begin in the third quarter of this year. Virgin Spaceline President Mike Moses says the company is planning for a partial duration powered flight of the vehicle to test its performance at speeds up to Mach 1.5. That'll be followed by 2 full duration burns, which will take the vehicle on a complete suborbital trajectory. The first of these 2 test flights will have just the 2 pilots on board as well as some research payloads for NASA. The second will have the 2 pilots as well as 6 company employees in order to validate the cabin experience as well as procedures and processes. Moses says based on the company's earlier Spaceship 2 vehicles, 3 powered test flights should be sufficient. Those 2 Spaceship 2 vehicles were the VSS Enterprise, which was destroyed in a pilot error crash in 2014, and VSS Unity, which undertook 12 suborbital flights exceeding altitudes of 80 kilometres, although it never actually passed the 100-kilometre high Kármán line, which marks the official start of space. Whether the new Delta class will be able to surpass that barrier is yet to be seen. The company expects commercial suborbital flights to resume later this year and has already opened bookings with seats going for $750,000 each. Meanwhile, Virgin says it needs to train additional pilots to meet the expected increase in cadence. And they'll use the original Spaceship 2 vehicle VSS Unity for the training as it shares the same profile as the new Delta class. The company says commercial research flights would begin in the fourth quarter of 2026, followed by private astronaut flights, in other words space tourism, 6 to 8 weeks later. Once the new vehicle enters service, Virgin will gradually ramp up its flight rate, starting with 4 flights a month, that's once a week, and later increasing that to 8 flights a month, twice a week, and eventually achieving 10 or more flights by later next year. Meanwhile, the mothership that carries the rocket plane to altitude has also gone through an upgrade. The revamp will allow the twin-hull jet-powered aircraft known as Eve to handle between 12 and 15 flights a month and extend its service life till at least 2032. Meanwhile, Virgin Galactic has now started design work on a replacement vehicle, currently simply known as LVX. It should be ready by 2030, along with additional spaceplanes. This report from Virgin Galactic.
Those who have already flown to space describe the experience as utterly life-changing. Commercial human spaceflight is a new and growing market. As Virgin Galactic prepares for its next phase of launches, the company has already pre-booked approximately 700 customers from more than 60 countries. Although this industry is still in its early stages, research suggests a potential addressable target market of nearly 300,000 customers worldwide, with an anticipated annual growth rate of 8%. Given the world's timeless attraction to space travel, high customer demand is not surprising. Historically, the design and operating model of spacecraft made regular, repeatable flight operations nearly impossible, and therefore, the cost per flight of human space travel has been prohibitively high. While the space industry typically measures turnaround time, the time between flights of a single spacecraft, in months, Virgin Galactic is changing that. The company's new spaceships are being built to operate with an average turnaround time of just 3 days, an enormous breakthrough that structurally changes the cost of human spaceflight. This achievement is made possible with their unique spaceflight system and technology. The first stage of flight is delivered by the mothership, a unique airplane that begins the day by leaving the spaceport hangar, taking off for a climb to 45,000 feet, and then releasing the spaceship for the second phase of flight. The spaceship then uses the world's most powerful hybrid rocket system to fly to space at around 3 times the speed of sound. The fuel for this flight is carried in a replaceable rocket motor that is easily changed between flights. The wing design of the spaceship allows the energy of re-entry to be dispersed in a graceful glide back to the spaceport. This is comfortable for customers and enables the spaceship to make a quick return to the maintenance hangar shortly after landing. Once the ships are back in the hangar, the spent rocket motor is replaced with a new one. A series of post-flight inspections are conducted, and preparation begins for the next spaceflight a few days later. This innovative approach is designed to enable each spaceship in the fleet to fly hundreds of customers to space each year, while bringing costs down dramatically compared to historical standards. Virgin Galactic's next two spaceships, new models that are planned to launch in 2026, are expected to deliver steady-state operating capacity of approximately 125 spaceflights per year, or around 750 customers. Assuming 750 customers flying per year, at current pricing of $600,000 per seat, this translates to annualized revenue of around $450 million. As the fleet is expanded by adding 2 additional spaceships and an additional mothership, flight capacity is expected to increase to around 275 flights with over 1,600 customers per year. This rate would translate into revenues growing to nearly $1 billion. This impressive revenue level would be delivered by less than 1% of estimated global demand. With such substantial unmet demand, the company expects to further scale its fleet to serve additional spaceports in other parts of the globe.
This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with the Science Report. And a new study suggests that routine could be key to losing weight. A report in the journal Health Psychology claims a repetitive rotation of meals is linked to better results from a 12-week behavioral weight loss program. To reach their conclusions, 112 overweight or obese adults participated in the program, and the authors collected detailed data on their diets to compare how similar they were, how often meals were repeated, and how similar the participants' total calorie consumption was day to day, including on the weekends. The authors say participants who repeated meals more often had an average weight loss of 5.9%, compared to 4.3% among those who mostly ate unique meals. Those who ate a more consistent amount of calories each day were also more likely to lose more weight than those who fluctuated. The authors think that because simple habits are easier to stick to, creating a smaller rotation of go-to meals could be best for consistently making the best diet choices for weight loss. A new study has found that the dinosaur lizard king, Tyrannosaurus rex, walked and ran on their tippy toes. The findings, reported in the Journal of the Royal Society Open Science, are based on precise measurements of leg and foot bones from 4 well-preserved T-Rex specimens. They also studied fossil footprints to see where these 7-ton theropod dinosaurs pressed their weight into the ground, finding that the deepest marks were under their toes, which suggested a tiptoe step. The authors think these 14-metre-long predators could reach speeds of between 5 and 11 metres per second, moving with a gait similar to modern ground birds. Walking on tiptoes also affects how the animals handle their own weight. Humans tend to run with relatively stiff, spring-like steps. Now, in contrast, T-Rex moved in a crouched posture and took lots of fast steps to remain stable. These tippy-toe steps allowed the legs to act like shock absorbers, helping the predator stay balanced even on uneven terrain. The first of the Australian Army's 30 new locally made self-propelled howitzers are starting to roll off the production line in Victoria. The AS-9 Huntsman uses a 155mm howitzer gun. The vehicles are based on the South Korean K9 Thunder, updated and modified with NATO fire control systems to meet local requirements. The new vehicles will operate together with 15 AS-10 ammunition resupply support vehicles based on the South Korean K-10. Globally, 11 nations are now operating the K-9 and K-10 artillery system, with some 2,400 vehicles now in service. Their arrival follows the deployment of the first of an initial 42 M142 HIMARS mobile rocket launcher systems, with approval already given for an additional 48 vehicles. The HIMARS is equipped with 6 launch tubes designed to carry a range of guided rockets. The Army was also recently re-equipped with 75 new Abrams M1A2 main battle tanks, replacing the earlier M1A1 versions, many of which have been donated to Ukraine for their fight against the Russian invasion. There are growing reports of strange, creepy sounds emanating from the bowels of CXX's railroad yards in Cincinnati. The skeptic's Tim Mendham says, so naturally, if there are strange noises, there must be monsters on the loose.
Yes, this is a part of the town in Cincinnati, which is near the Union Rail Yard. But people have been hearing these strange animal spooky sounds described as whirring, oscillating, going up and down like a siren sort of sound. And it's been quite hearable, readily heard by people in the area, so it's not a phony sound, it's real. And it's been scaring a lot of people. And it's supposedly every night this sound coming out. It's naturally come down to suggestions that it's sort of a Yeti or a Bigfoot or something like that, or a Loch Ness Monster, which is weird, Cincinnati, I don't think it has a loch. Even a kraken released in the Ohio River.
Yeah.
Yeah, others believe it's sort of a biblical animal of some sort or another. And as it turns out, it's probably a locomotive. Despite all the people sort of claiming they can hear this sound, well, they can hear the sound, but it's not quite what they think it is. There is an engine called a trim engine, which is basically an old thing that just shunt carriages and other locomotives in and out of their spot on the rail yard. It doesn't venture out into the wild. So it's been doing this for some time, but apparently it needs repairs, and it needs good maintenance to take away some of these whirring, oscillating, going up and down siren sounds.
The very first radio station I worked at, the place I was renting, was right next to the rail yard. And yeah, I've heard some creepy sounds coming from switcher locomotives there that are in need of repairs. And they make some really spooky sounds at times, not just the throbbing of an engine, which you'd expect, but some really weird squeals and screams. And I'm not talking about steel wheels with flanges on iron rails. I'm talking about problems with the engine and the turbochargers on the engines and stuff that needs to be repaired, and it can sound creepy.
To be precise, it's coming from the CSXT8431 engine locomotive. That's a trim engine that it's an old engine that needs repairs.
If it is CSXT8431, it's a SD40 model EMD locomotive.
Well, there we are. The engine of the locomotive does not leave the rail yard. It is used to push and pull rail cars, revving loudly during heavy hauls, and the engine is sort of a bit grindy. The owners of the rail yard said, we do look after our locomotives, but I don't think they admit that it's sort of using old stock or something to actually shunt things around. But it's an interesting example of how people hear a sound, they don't know what it is, so they naturally assume the Bigfoot or a Yeti or a Loch Ness Monster or a local sort of cryptid or some sort or another. So, I don't know what it is, so this is what it is. And it's that jump which is sort of probably one of the most amusing and frustrating things for skeptics.
That's the skeptic's Tim Mendham, and this is Space Time. That's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from SpaceTimeWithStuartGarry.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to SpaceTimeWithStuartGarry.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.